Have you ever wondered what truly happens to those who dare to rise against the chosen ones? They may believe they are fighting an individual, but in reality they are provoking a war with destiny itself. And destiny never loses. Those who oppose the marked ones discover, sooner or later, that every action carries a consequence. And when you strike against divine purpose, the consequences are terrifying. It begins with subtle unrest, small shadows creeping into their path, but it always ends with collapse so complete that no explanation can deny it. These are not coincidences. These are not accidents. These are verdicts written by a higher hand. Tonight, you will witness the hidden truth. 9 frightening consequences that no enemy of the chosen escapes. Each revelation will peel back a layer of mystery and expose why those marked by light walk under a protection that nothing and no one can shatter. And let me warn you, the final consequence is the most chilling of all. A truth so undeniable it will leave you breathless. This is not just a list, it is a spiritual mirror. As you listen, you will feel it resonate in your own life, and you will understand why no force on earth can silence what has been sealed by heaven. So if you are ready, stay with me until the very last second, because what you are about to hear will change the way you see destiny forever. And before we begin, I want you to seal this moment with action. If you feel the weight of this message, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment 99 below. Why 99? Because in the language of the Spirit, 99 is not incompleteness. It is the sign that heaven is about to release the final piece, the missing one that completes the circle. By commenting 99, you declare that you are open, aligned, and ready for the divine completion that belongs only to the chosen. Are you ready? Then let's step into the first consequence. 1. The torment of the mind. The very first blow that strikes those who dare to oppose the chosen does not come from outside forces. It begins inside their own mind. It is subtle at first, almost invisible, like a whisper in the silence of the night. But soon that whisper becomes a roar that no distraction can silence. Peace, once taken for granted, evaporates like smoke in the wind. A strange unrest takes root deep within them, and suddenly, even in moments of quiet, their thoughts begin to turn against them. They lie awake at night, eyes wide open in the darkness, their heart racing without cause, their chest heavy as if an unseen hand were pressing down. Sleep, which once brought rest, now becomes a battlefield where nightmares chase them endlessly. And what is most terrifying is that this torment cannot be explained away as simple stress or worry. Even the strongest skeptics, those who laugh at anything spiritual, feel it. Because this is not just psychological, it is a spiritual verdict. It is as if their conscience itself has been seized by a higher court, forced to replay every choice, every word spoken against the chosen. They may try to distract themselves with work, with pleasures, with endless noise and entertainment, but the silence always returns, and when it does, the torment grows louder. Anxiety coils around their thoughts like a serpent, squeezing until every plan feels uncertain, every breath feels heavy. Their smile becomes hollow, their laughter forced, because deep inside something is breaking. They cannot admit it out loud, but they know. They touched something they were never meant to touch. And here lies the mystery that frightens them the most. It does not matter whether they believe or not. Destiny does not ask for their permission. Divine judgment does not wait for their approval. The torment comes anyway, and it grows heavier the longer they resist. Their mind becomes a prison without walls, and their conscience becomes the jailer, reminding them day after day that they crossed a line they cannot uncross. Imagine this. They sit at a table surrounded by friends, yet they feel utterly alone because the battle is raging inside their own head. Every attempt to silence it fails. No alcohol numbs it, no drug drowns it, no distraction buries it. And as this invisible weight presses deeper, they begin to sense that what is chasing them is not madness. It is a verdict from above. This is the beginning of their collapse. For when the mind is shaken, everything else begins to crumble. And as their nights grow longer, their rest disappears and their sanity slips further away, they cannot help but wonder. If the torment of the mind is only the first consequence, what darker storms still await them? 2. The chain of bad luck. Once the mind is seized, something even stranger begins to unfold in the physical world around them. At first it looks like nothing more than bad luck, a missed call, a canceled meeting, a payment that never arrives. They shrug it off, telling themselves it happens to everyone. But soon the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Every step they take is met with resistance. The deal that was guaranteed suddenly falls apart. The friend who promised support vanishes without warning. Objects they value break in their hands for no reason. Technology fails at the exact moment they need it most, and carefully crafted plans collapse like a tower of sand against the tide. What terrifies them most is not the events themselves, but the rhythm of it all. It feels orchestrated, almost deliberate, as though an unseen hand were weaving chaos into the very fabric of their days. The harder they try to move forward, the heavier the resistance becomes. What should be simple turns impossibly complicated. A task that once took minutes now drags on for days. Doors that looked wide open slam shut without explanation. It is not one big disaster. It is 1,000 small disruptions stacking one on top of the other, crushing their spirit piece by piece. And with each failure, a whisper grows louder in their mind. This is not coincidence. This is consequence. They cannot say it out loud, but deep inside they know. They touch something sacred when they challenge the chosen, and now life itself seems to be pushing back. Every path they take bends against them. Every attempt to regain control slips like water through their fingers. Even those closest to them begin to notice. "Why is everything going wrong for you lately?" They ask, but there is no logical answer. The enemy of the chosen cannot admit the truth, that destiny itself is opposing them. The pressure builds. Each setback leaves them more restless, more paranoid, more convinced that something greater is at work. They search for explanations, bad timing, bad choices, bad people, but none of them fit, because the failures keep multiplying with surgical precision. They are trapped in a storm of small misfortunes that cut deeper than any single catastrophe ever could. And here lies the cruelest part. The chain of bad luck is only the opening act. It is the warning before the avalanche. For every broken plan, every missed opportunity, every shattered object is a signal from above. You should have never touched what was sealed by heaven. Yet they do not understand, not yet. They think the tide of misfortune will pass. They hope the storm will calm. But they are wrong. The chain will only tighten. The weight will only grow. And soon, these scattered fragments of failure will transform into something far more destructive, something that no human strength can endure. 3. Failures multiply relentlessly. What begins as small inconveniences soon grows into a tidal wave of devastation. The chain of bad luck does not remain harmless. It mutates into something far heavier, far darker. One setback leads to another, and then another, until the entire structure of their life begins to collapse. The contract that fell through yesterday becomes the bankruptcy of tomorrow. The argument that seemed trivial with a partner becomes the slow poisoning of an entire relationship. The cough they ignored, the fatigue they brushed aside, becomes a shadow over their health that no doctor can easily explain. It is as if the universe itself is pressing down on every corner of their existence, turning stability into fragility, and fragility into ruin. The most chilling part is how fast it all spreads. Failures do not come one at a time. They multiply with ruthless precision. It is like a domino effect. The moment one piece falls, it triggers another, and then another, until the whole chain comes crashing down. They try to grab hold of something, anything, but everything they touch crumbles to dust. What once seemed solid now reveals itself to be paper-thin. A business deal meticulously planned for years collapses overnight. A friendship they trusted turns into betrayal. Even their own strength begins to betray them, as their health falters and energy fades. And with every collapse, panic takes root. They rush to fix one area of life, only to find that another is falling apart behind them. They pour effort into work, but family life crumbles. They try to repair their health, but financial ruin tightens its grip. No matter where they turn, they are met with loss. The sensation is suffocating, like drowning in quicksand. Every movement meant to save them only drags them deeper into despair. Those around them start to whisper. People who once admired them now shake their heads and say, "What happened to them? Everything used to go so well, and now it's all falling apart." The image of power and control they once projected is shattered. They no longer look like the victor. They look like someone being swallowed alive by invisible forces. And in truth, that is exactly what is happening. For destiny itself has turned against them, closing doors that once stood open, dismantling structures they thought were indestructible. But here lies the cruel twist. Every effort to rebuild only accelerates the collapse. They design new plans only to see them dissolve. They reach for new alliances only to be betrayed again. They fight to prove their strength, but the more they fight, the more fragile they appear. And deep inside, though they may deny it, they sense the truth. This is not ordinary failure. This is judgment. This is the weight of defying those who walk under divine protection. And just when they think it cannot get worse, it does. The collapse of businesses, relationships, and health is not the end. It is only the preparation for the next stage, one even more terrifying. Because when everything external falls apart, something more haunting begins to happen within. Their circle of allies, their last line of defense, starts to vanish. And the moment they realize they are completely alone, the real nightmare begins. 4. The shadow of isolation. When the storms of failure tear apart everything they once built, something even more chilling creeps in. The slow and merciless shadow of isolation. It does not arrive with thunder or explosions. It comes quietly, like a fog rolling into every relationship, stealing away connections one by one. At first, it is subtle, a friend who doesn't return their call, a colleague who suddenly grows distant, a family member who avoids conversation. They dismiss it as coincidence, but soon the pattern becomes undeniable. The people who once surrounded them, the very ones they leaned on for support, begin to vanish like smoke in the wind. This abandonment cuts deeper than financial ruin or broken plans, because it strikes at the heart of human nature. No one wants to be left alone, and yet those who rise against the chosen find themselves deserted in their darkest hour. Friends stop inviting them. Allies they once trusted betray them for their own survival. Even family, the blood that should remain unshakable, creates distance, sensing an invisible heaviness they can no longer bear to carry. It is as if the world itself is pulling away, refusing to share the weight of the judgment pressing upon them. And here lies the terrifying truth. This isolation is not random. It is orchestrated by destiny itself. People may not even understand why they are leaving. They simply feel an unseen pressure, a spiritual heaviness that makes them withdraw. Subconsciously, they know that staying close to someone marked by divine judgment brings danger. And so, step by step, the enemy of the chosen is stripped of every human pillar they once relied on. The cruel irony is that isolation reveals the fragility they worked so hard to hide. When the lights were on, they looked powerful, untouchable, surrounded by admiration. But now, with the room empty and the silence echoing, the mask falls away. The laughter that once filled their gatherings is gone. The allies who once cheered for them are nowhere to be found. Even their enemies stop speaking because there is no need. Silence itself has become the loudest humiliation. This loneliness is not just external. It seeps into their soul, amplifying the torment of the mind, intensifying the weight of failure. They stand face to face with a mirror, and the reflection reveals a cruel reality. No human support can save them from divine justice. No friend, no ally, no family member can shield them from what they triggered by touching what was sacred. And as the days stretch longer, the silence becomes unbearable. Loneliness turns into paranoia. They feel the absence of people. But more than that, they feel the presence of something else, something they cannot see, something that watches them from the shadows. And that realization pierces them with fear, because deep inside they know, if everyone has abandoned them, what is it that still lingers so close? 5. The mysterious sickness. When the mind is tormented, when failures multiply, and when isolation tightens its grip, the judgment does not stop at the unseen. It begins to invade the body itself. This is where the mysterious sickness enters, creeping in silently, draining strength day by day. It is not a wound that can be bandaged, nor a disease easily identified. It is subtle, insidious, and terrifying. They wake up tired no matter how many hours they sleep. Their body feels heavy, as if chains are wrapped around their limbs. A constant fatigue begins to blur their thoughts. making even the simplest tasks feel like climbing a mountain, and the nights bring no relief. Insomnia stalks them like a predator. When they do close their eyes, they are greeted not by peace, but by shallow rest filled with strange sensations, a pressure on the chest, the weight of something unseen, shadows pressing into their dreams. Panic attacks strike without warning, a racing heart, cold sweats, trembling hands, as if their body is responding to an invisible enemy. The doctors are puzzled. They run test after test, scan after scan, but everything comes back normal. On paper, the enemy of the chosen looks healthy, but in reality they are unraveling from the inside out. This is the cruelest paradox. They cannot prove what is happening to them, yet they cannot escape it. The sickness is invisible to human eyes because it does not begin in the flesh. It begins in the spirit, then spreads to the mind, and finally manifests in the body. It is not a physical illness. It is the soul collapsing under the unbearable weight of divine justice. The light they tried to extinguish now burns within their own being as a consuming fire. And here lies the horror. The more they resist, the worse it becomes. Medicines numb symptoms temporarily, but never heal them. Sleep aids dull the night, but cannot silence the dread that waits when the pill wears off. Even their energy to pretend disappears. People begin to notice the change in their face, the pale skin, the tired eyes, the voice that has lost its strength. The once proud enemy of the chosen now looks hollow, as though life itself is being drained away drop by drop. Deep down, they begin to fear a truth they cannot admit. This sickness is not random. It is not a cruel twist of fate. It is the body echoing the verdict already written in the unseen realms. Every ache, every sleepless night, every unexplained weakness is a reminder. They are paying a price for touching what was untouchable. And yet, as devastating as this mysterious sickness is, it is still not the end. Because the body may falter, but destiny is not satisfied with silent suffering. The next stage is far more brutal. It does not only strip strength, it tears apart pride, exposing them in front of the very world they once sought to impress. And when that moment arrives, humiliation becomes the sharpest weapon of all. 6. The breaking of pride. Pride has always been the mask of the enemy of the chosen. It is the armor they wear, the weapon they brandish, the illusion that convinces them they are untouchable. But when divine judgment advances, pride is the very first fortress to fall. It does not collapse in silence, it shatters publicly for all to see. The arrogance they once carried with such confidence begins to crumble under the weight of undeniable humiliation. Those who once looked at them with envy or fear now witness their downfall with stunned eyes. The louder they boasted, the harsher the silence that follows. What makes this stage terrifying is the exposure. Failures in private can be hidden, weakness in secret can be concealed, but when pride breaks, the collapse is on display. Their name, once spoken with respect or authority, is now whispered with pity, sometimes even with ridicule. The same mouth that once mocked the chosen is forced to taste humiliation. What they once said, "They are weak, they are nothing," becomes the exact sentence that defines their own condition. The reversal is absolute. Destiny orchestrates this fall with precision. It places them in situations where their limitations are undeniable. The leader loses the trust of followers. The proud business owner watches everything crumble in front of clients. The family member who claimed control becomes powerless before the eyes of those they sought to dominate. Their image of strength is torn apart, not in the shadows, but in broad daylight. Every eye becomes a witness. Every ear hears the echo of their shame. And yet the breaking of pride is not only external, it cuts into the core of who they are. For so long they lived feeding on superiority, believing nothing could touch them. But now, standing exposed and fragile, they realized that all of it was smoke. The power they bragged about was an illusion. The authority they displayed was temporary. And the respect they demanded was only fear in disguise. All of it dissolves in the moment destiny decides to unveil the truth. The humiliation burns deeper than any sickness, deeper than any financial collapse. Because pride is not just an attitude, it is identity. When identity is shattered, the person feels stripped naked before the entire world. This is the divine reversal. The proud are brought low, the mockers are silenced. The self-proclaimed giants are revealed as fragile clay. And those who once stood tall on the stage of arrogance are now bowed to the ground by the hand of destiny. But here is where the real torment begins. Because humiliation is not the final strike, it is only the preparation. Once pride is broken, once they are publicly exposed, they begin to realize that something far more terrifying is closing in. Not only the judgment of men, not only the whispers of society, but a shadow that follows them wherever they go, a presence they cannot escape. And soon that presence becomes unbearable. 7. The endless paranoia. When pride is broken and humiliation is laid bare, a new and more suffocating reality begins to wrap itself around those who dared to rise against the chosen. Paranoia. It does not strike with a loud roar, but creeps in like a whisper, a presence just out of sight. At first, it is nothing more than a fleeting sensation, the feeling of being watched while walking alone, the sense that someone is standing in the corner of the room though no one is there. They shake their head, telling themselves it's nothing. But the feeling doesn't fade. It grows stronger with every passing day. Soon, every sound becomes a warning. The creak of a floorboard in the night feels like footsteps closing in. The slam of a door feels like judgment entering the room. Even the silence becomes unbearable, thick and heavy, as if the air itself is filled with eyes staring directly at them. No matter where they go, the haunting shadow follows. At work, they feel studied. At home, they feel stalked. Even in a crowd surrounded by voices and movement, they feel singled out, as though an unseen spotlight is exposing them in front of the universe. And here lies the torment. The enemy of the chosen cannot point to a source. There is no face to accuse, no figure to fight, no enemy to confront. The haunting they feel is invisible because it is not human. It is the weight of divine justice pressing in, a constant reminder that they crossed a line they were never meant to cross. The paranoia drains them, stripping away the last fragments of peace they clung to. They check over their shoulder again and again. They lock doors 3 times, yet still feel unsafe. They hear whispers that no one else hears, footsteps that no one else notices. Their own fear is transformed into a prison that travels with them. It becomes impossible to rest, impossible to escape. The mind that once mocked the chosen now trembles at shadows. The hands that once pointed in arrogance now shake uncontrollably. Even their breath betrays them, coming fast and shallow whenever the invisible presence draws near. And yet there is no escape, for the haunting is not outside, it is within. They carry it everywhere they go because they cannot outrun the consequence of touching what is sacred. This endless paranoia is a torture unlike any other. It leaves them stranded in a world where every moment feels like the prelude to judgment. The sound of footsteps, the flicker of a shadow, the ringing of a phone, all of it is interpreted as a sign that something is about to descend upon them. And in their heart they know, it isn't just fear. It's a verdict. But the most chilling part is this: the paranoia is not meaningless. It is not just imagination. What they feel is real. Something is indeed moving closer, watching, preparing, and soon, the terror that stalks them in silence will manifest in a way they cannot deny. 8. The boomerang effect. There is a law written into the fabric of the universe, one that no enemy of the chosen can escape. Whatever they release returns to them, multiplied. At first, they believe they are in control, crafting elaborate traps, weaving cunning schemes, speaking words filled with poison. They smile with satisfaction, thinking their plans will finally break the one marked by heaven. But destiny has a cruel irony. It bends their actions back toward them with unstoppable force. The pit they dig for another becomes the grave they fall into. The rope they tighten around the chosen's neck coils suddenly around their own. The very weapons they sharpen in secret are the ones that pierce their own flesh. It does not happen immediately, which makes it all the more terrifying. They act boldly, confident that nothing will stop them, and for a while, it may even appear that their schemes are working. But then the reversal begins, subtle at first, invisible to outsiders. A rumor they started returns to them twisted into a curse against their own name. A betrayal they orchestrated circles back, and suddenly, they are the ones betrayed. Their laughter fades, their arrogance collapses, because everything they launched into the world is now hunting them down like a predator. The chosen stand untouched, not because the attack never happened, but because destiny absorbs the blow and hurls it back with greater weight. This is the boomerang effect, the unstoppable law of divine reversal. What was meant to destroy ends up building the chosen's strength. while the enemy is crushed under the rubble of their own schemes. The words of mockery they once shouted become echoes of shame that follow them everywhere. Their insults turn into mirrors, showing them their own downfall. This is more than poetic justice. It is a spiritual law in motion. Every arrow aimed at the chosen turns mid-air.
Every weapon raised shatters in the hands of the one who lifted it.
Every curse muttered in secret returns amplified, pressing against the enemy with a force they cannot resist. They become trapped in a cycle of self-destruction, victims not of someone else's vengeance, but of their own malice coming back upon them. And the cruelest part? They cannot explain it. They cannot blame anyone else. The evidence is too clear, the reversal too precise. They see the trap snapping shut and realize too late it was their own hands that set it. The shame burns hotter than fire, because the world watches as they are destroyed by the very tools they created. What was supposed to bring victory has become the symbol of their ultimate defeat. But the boomerang effect is not the conclusion. It is only the confirmation. Because once every plan collapses back upon them, once every weapon betrays its master, there remains one final truth, one last verdict waiting in silence. And when it arrives, it is not just consequence. It is destiny itself delivering the final, irreversible judgment. 9. The final verdict, after the torment of the mind, after the chains of misfortune, after the relentless failures, the crushing loneliness, the mysterious sickness, the humiliation of pride, the endless paranoia, and the devastating boomerang effect, there comes a moment where everything stops. Not because relief has arrived, but because the truth can no longer be denied. This is the point where the enemy of the chosen faces the final verdict. It is not a verdict delivered by human courts, not a judgment that can be appealed, bargained with, or delayed. It is the decree of heaven itself, the eternal law that no strategy, no strength, and no wealth can overturn. It is here that their eyes finally open to a terrifying realization. They never fought against a man or a woman. They never fought against a single life marked by light. They fought against destiny. They fought against what was written long before they existed. Every insult, every scheme, every betrayal was not an attack on the chosen alone. It was rebellion against the eternal. And the eternal always wins. The weight of this revelation is unbearable. They look around at the ruins of what their life once was and understand that none of it was stolen by chance. It was stripped away by design. The doors that closed, the allies that vanished, the strength that drained. It was not random. It was the universe enforcing the law. Do not touch the anointed. Do not rise against the chosen. What was written above has now been carved into their reality below, and there is no escape. At this stage, fear is no longer the loudest sound. Silence is the silence of realization, the silence of defeat, the silence that whispers, "It is over." The proud voice that once mocked destiny now trembles with regret. But it is too late, for the verdict is final. What they once thought was power is revealed to be dust. What they once thought was control is revealed to be an illusion. What they once thought was victory is revealed to be the pathway to their own downfall. And the most haunting part of all is this: the chosen did not need to lift a finger. The battle was never theirs to fight. Destiny fought for them. Heaven fought for them. The eternal hand moved in silence, and the enemies destroyed themselves in the process. This is why the chosen walk untouched while their enemies crumble, because no darkness can rewrite what has already been decreed by light. And so the story closes not with noise, but with an unshakable truth. Those who dare to challenge the chosen always discover too late that they were never in control. They were only actors in a play whose ending was written long ago. They fought against the eternal, and the eternal always wins. But for those listening now, this is not the end. It is the threshold. Because if the eternal always wins, then what does that mean for you, the one marked by destiny? What power, what protection, what promise is already unfolding over your life, while the universe itself fights on your behalf? Stay with me, because that answer is about to be revealed. Whoever dares to touch the chosen does not simply oppose a human being. They collide with the eternal will of heaven itself. And from that collision, no one escapes. The verdict is written, unshakable, undeniable. The destiny of the chosen cannot be overturned. Every scheme crumbles, every attack collapses, Every shadow is swallowed by a greater light. These 9 consequences are not mere warnings. They are the undeniable proof that the mark of destiny cannot be erased.